You're listening to the Today's Eden Podcast, Episode 9. What? 2017 in the house. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful new year, or at least maybe a relaxing one, that you had lots of time to reflect over the past year and enjoy it with somebody or lots of somebodies. However you spent it. Personally, I watched a movie as soon as we put our kids down, and that's about it. I pretty much passed out as soon as the ball dropped. Not even in our own town. So I guess that's the mom life, right? So I wanted to spend some time today going over the top 5 interviews of Today's Eden podcast this past year. And it is no surprise to me that one of the top ones, and the first one I'm going to talk about, is my very first episode. You guys, I cannot thank this woman enough for everything that she did. As an inspiration in my life, in my personal, my marriage, and my spiritual walk as well, and definitely in parenting. But also just for being there, for letting me say, hey, I have this idea. I want to do this. Would you be my first interview? And I was nervous. We had one microphone. We were in her living room and we literally had to be a foot away from each other. Like our faces had to be like the closest possible because I only had this one microphone. And even though we were sitting like so close, you could barely hear if one of us was talking just because we need the microphone that I had. We needed to be like super close to it. So it was really nerve-wracking for me, my first time interviewing, but her interview was amazing, of course. And she had so many good takeaways, so many good nuggets. And so I just wanted to share my thoughts with you on that. So first, I love how she says, or she mentions, to listen more than you talk in marriage, to take the discipline to make sure you both understand, that what you're hearing is actually what they mean. So when sometimes your husband walks by you and he says a sentence in passing, you kind of hear it really quickly and then you translate it how you want to translate it, and you kind of, it creates anger or frustration within you, but then you don't approach him about it and say, did you just say this? And did you just mean, XYZ? Because then most of the time, she was saying your husband would actually come back and say, no, that's not what I meant. This is what I meant. Or, there's just a lot of miscommunication that can happen. And oftentimes it's those fights that get made out of miscommunication, and they can be avoided if we both kind of went to our spouses and had the discipline to make sure that we were both on the same page with what somebody said. Another thing that I really found valuable was her mentioning of the 5 love languages. If you have not tested your love language yet, I highly, highly, highly suggest that. My husband's hardly ever changes, but mine changes probably every 6 months. And so for me, I am constantly, I'll go back to that website or on my phone and I'll do the quiz, and it's a really short quiz. And then I'll let him know, like I'll send him the picture of what, the most is, what my highest love language is. And, and then he knows how to pursue me in that way, because if he isn't pursuing me, say if what I need from him right now is just for him to encourage me with his words, to say I love you, to say I'm thankful for you, I'm grateful for all that you do, but he doesn't know that, and say that he just feels like if he buys me gifts and, brings me home treats here and a necklace there, that like that is what is filling my tank. But really, I just need to hear him say, I love you, you're doing an awesome job, I see you. But if he's not on the same page with what I need, then he can't give me that. So the 5 love languages is a really good way to pursue each other, and make sure that they are feeling loved, because we are all different. We come from different backgrounds. We come from different upbringings, and we feel and translate love in different ways than each other. So that is super helpful. And also letting your kids make decisions and asking more questions to help them create the thinking. So when they come to you with a situation and instead of just saying, yeah, that's a bad idea. Like, pursue them with more questions. So why do you feel that way? Why do you think that that would be possible? Why do you want to pursue this? How does that make you feel? Do you think you're going to gain something from that? Do you think that that's a bad idea? Are you going to feel good about it the next day? Questions like those that are help them to create that thought process that they're going to need when they're older, when you're not around. So you're just helping them to basically do that on their own as they get older. And which comes to another thing that she said that is pretty similar, but just don't say no and use examples of the why. So if they were to, she mentions the example of smoking. So instead of just saying no, like, we don't smoke in this house, you will never smoke. She says, well, look over there. Do you know that person who is smoking? Do they look healthy? Are they coughing all the time? What do you smell when you go to, this place? Do you like the way that it smells? If when you're talking about a place that has a lot of smokers or whatever, just using examples for them to think about, is this a good choice, instead of just saying no? Because we all know when our parents just say, no, you can't do this, we like to just do the opposite in spite of them, not even really. And it becomes more or less, actually, it becomes less about the thing that we're asking about and more about just proving to our whoever that we can do what we want, that we can make our own decisions. But what we really want to do is help them to think through the decisions. So I think those were like the top things that I learned from her episode. And you guys, I hope you go back and listen to it if you haven't, or listen to it again. It's just a really great conversation on marriage, parenting, and her Christian life, and just going through today as a Christian woman. So it's just amazing. And then the next episode I want to talk about is my episode with Krista Grant, and she was a behavior specialist, former owner and founder of Farm to Fork and doTERRA Blue Diamond. She had a lot of great information on essential oils and natural wellness, and just how essential oils empowered her in the beginning, like not having to load up her whole family at midnight when, one of the kids would be sick to go to a care now. Just the fact that she knew that she had something in her toolbox at home that she could go to first without having to rely on someone else. And that for me was super empowering when I started using essential oils as well, because you just want to help your baby in the then and the now. And just being able to go like 5 feet, to your medicine cabinet where your oils are, and to be able to provide for your little one when they're in tears, when they're hurt, when they have a scratch, whatever, is just really empowering to feel like you have control over that versus letting the control be in someone else. And sometimes that's a good thing. There's a time and a place for both. But this just gives you the option, and it makes it that more empowering. Also, I thought it was really interesting when she told us a story about her position as a behavioral specialist. And, it was, especially pretty crazy that she had her jaw broken. So if you haven't heard her tell that story in the episode, go back and take a listen. But just very hair raising listening to her talk about, what it would have been like had she have had the oils when she had that position for those children, and most importantly to empower the mommies that had children in those classes with Krista. And then also realizing that the food system and the medical system has changed. I feel like a lot of the times, just like Krista said, is that we say, oh, well, I used to eat that when I was a kid, and look at, I turned out okay. Yeah, but food is evolving and not in a good way. Unfortunately, as the years go on, it's becoming more processed, more streamlined, so that way food can be cheaper, so it can be batch made, basically they're just plopping it into a box and shipping it out. But when our parents were growing up, even some of us when we were younger, when we were 5, 6, 7 years old, food was a lot different than it is now. Milk, oh my gosh, milk has come a long, long way, and it's lost a lot of its nutritional value along the way. Even some of the box things like bread, or even bread, has dramatically changed throughout the years. So just knowing that you can't trust everything at face value anymore. And just to dig deeper, like, we have the information, we have technology now. Back then they didn't have it, but it really didn't apply back then, because for a lot of the time, what they were eating was actually what it said it was. Now what we're eating isn't what it says it is, and we don't look into that. There's ingredients on the back of our boxes that we don't understand. There's words that we don't know. You have a phone, Google it real quick and see what it is. Or, do research. We have Pinterest. There's so many things available to us to say, hey, I need to know more about what I'm putting in my body. I need to know more about why my doctor is telling me this, but I feel like it's that. Like, in so many different areas of our life, we have a lot more control over doing the research. And so I just really like that she talks about that, not to take everything at face value and to dig a little bit deeper and to not take no for an answer. Just because that's kind of a BS cop-out. And so, when it is something in the medical system, if somebody tells you they're not sure, then, ask them questions. That doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. Why? Why don't you know? What? And then, that can give you kind of an idea of, hey, like, maybe I need to take things in my own hands, and that's okay. And then also, her story with Lyme disease was really empowering and inspirational. And if you have Lyme disease, I would encourage you to listen to her episode. She's very encouraging about her journey. And it was hopefully she's doing well. Krista, I would love to hear an update, or if you could share that with us, that would be awesome. But I know that when we talked, she had been seeing somebody new, and within 6 months, she was seeing improvement. And I love that during that conversation, she said, don't own the disease, don't own the illness. Don't let it be your identity. Let it be your season that you're going through. Like, I'm actually going through, Hashimoto's right now. This is a part of the season of the life that I am in right now. But I am not Ashley with Hashimoto's. And so I felt very good about that, because I do have an autoimmune disease and I am going to have it for the rest of my life. But knowing that I can say to myself, like, yes, I have this, but it's not who I am. And that is exactly how I feel about having an autoimmune disease. And it's encouraged me. It's made me feel empowered, and it's made me feel more in control, and like it's not in control of my life. The next episode up was my episode with Nicole Fennell on autoimmunity. And seriously, I cannot quote a lot of it, because it was like, you have to listen to it. It's such a good episode, but it is so full of education about your your immune system and your gut health. And also, I love how she talks about PCOS. I know that I have some friends that struggle with that. So for me, that was an interesting topic, PCOS and infertility, and just overall body wellness. And I love how she just talks about how much our diet plays a role into our well-being, and that if you're stressed out, if you're not having an adequate diet, and even though you're exercising, it could be translated as over-exercise and actually doing harm to our body instead of good for our body. And then it was very interesting when she talked about how, even as a dietitian, there wasn't a lot of education in her certification process, or in the medical field in general, about autoimmune condition diet. Like, there's no nutritional guidance for people with autoimmune disease. And I think that that is a huge flaw in the system, because there is so many of us that are now experiencing Crohn's, Lyme's disease, celiac disease, that's kind of an important thing that I think that the medical field and health practitioners in general should be aware of, to help guide us better, instead of, like Nicole said, the whole counting calories, the low fat diet thing. It just doesn't make sense. That's not how we are meant to eat. That's not really feasible for a lot of us. We can't, try to make lunch and count how many calories our chicken, or how much, or weigh it. Like, we just don't, our lifestyles don't allow for that. And even decades before us, it didn't allow for them either. And that's not how they functioned, but yet they were still healthy. So I think that that was very eye-opening for me, just to hear that were lacking, and a little disappointing, but also just kind of encouraged me more to continue to educate myself and to read and to research. And then also, I love how she says that genetics is kind of like having a loaded gun, but whether or not you pull the trigger is really dependent upon your lifestyle. So that again reiterates to me that how I'm living my life, what I'm eating, the stress factors, am I exercising or not, that is really important. So that because I'm taking the time to put thought into our food, what we're eating, because I'm taking the time to exercise or walk or run, because I'm taking the time to make sure I get enough sleep, that I'm not stressing out, or that I'm managing my stress well, like those are actual impactful things, that I'm not wasting my time on those things, because those in fact help me be healthy overall as a person, as well as internally as well. And then she said, I didn't realize this, but 70 to 80% of our immune system is housed in our gut. And doing a lot of studies of my autoimmune disease, I did realize that that is true. There is a lot of things that I needed to do for my gut health to actually feel better. And majorly, is that a word, majorly? I don't know. We're going to go with it. So like the major thing that made a difference for me, it was just cutting out gluten. So I cut out gluten, and then I felt amazing. And there were some little things that I had to do as well to continue, feeling at my utmost health, wellness feeling. But gluten and taking that out of my diet was like a huge game changer for me in the way that I felt day to day. And then just to be appreciative of what your body can do. So I like that she talks about her struggle, with her body, and just being like, I think a lot of us worry too much. Like she said, when you are pregnant, to enjoy the growth of your belly, to enjoy the fact that you're gaining weight, that it's, to enjoy those bodily changes. Like, this is what my body can do. And celebrate that. Celebrate the things that your body is doing, the things that we are capable of, doing, walking, running, jumping, housing a human being. Those are like amazing things that I think that we need to take more pride in, instead of worrying about, a little fat, a little thigh fat here and there. So yeah, I think those were my favorite things that were really encouraging. And the last thing that I would say that was one of my favorite takeaways, or my favorite quotes that she said in this interview, was to make it work. She says to get out of the black and white mentality, that there are some nights that the only thing they have in the house is an organic hot dog, and then that's what's for dinner. Life doesn't have to be Pinterest worthy and Instagram worthy. You guys, I think that the best thing that I have done is just kind of, filled my fridge with good, nutritious foods and what I feel like are the best. But hey, like if we eat pancakes one day, then we're eating pancakes. Of course, like my pancakes, I make sure that I'm buying like good batters to use, or good mixes. But, I think that we still kind of get in that mindset of like, oh, well, I didn't make this like 3-course meal, or there wasn't a protein, there wasn't a vegetable, or, and just enjoy your life. Like, just do the best that you can and be okay with that. Don't compare yourself to what other people are doing. You're eating off like I'm eating off of paper plates, or, and so they always have a glass plated meal. Like, who cares? Take care of your family, do what you feel is best, and take care of your body. Okay, so we're on my last 2 episodes that you guys showed were your faves. And the next one I'm going to talk about is my episode with Mary Claire Hall and Molly Jamieson about their role creating the North Hill, and also just finding that balance between motherhood and serving, doing something that they feel called to. And like I said in the interview, but I know for sure on my blog and my post about this episode, was that I had a very hard time existing outside of my role of motherhood, and that even when I felt called to do something more or something else, I would choose to ignore it, just for the fact of that it would either inconvenience my role as a mom, or it would disrupt my role as a mom or my kids' lives. I felt like, so I was always constantly putting my kids first, but in a way that yes, it's good to put your kids first, but at the same time, sometimes it's not always that necessary the way that we do it. And so, or maybe even I would challenge you to think about if it is kind of a front for kind of our scarcity of going out and pursuing our dreams, or something that is scary that even though it was put on our heart might be just really terrifying to pursue. I know that is how podcasting was for me, is that it's kind of like, I don't have the time for this, because I did not want to put myself out there. But back to the episode, I thought it was really, really awesome. I love how fun it was to talk to them, both of them. And it was just super encouraging to have them on, women who are momming it. They have experience in life. You know, they just know a lot. And it was just so empowering to hear them say like, hey, like, we're just doing this. And I know I've seen their North Hill ministry in action, excuse me. And it does take a lot of their time, but they do it in a smart way. Like the way that they went about doing it is doing it when they're, during the day. So their husbands are already, at work. They're just taking their kids along sometimes, and it's just a way that they can incorporate their family into their service, into their calling. And I really like how they talk about the story of Diane and Alik, sorry. And just the formulation of that whole process, like what they had to go through to get him here, all the paperwork, like all the behind the scenes things that I had no idea were taking place. And then for them to announce that he was going to be coming home that Monday after we recorded the episode was just so awesome. And then a week later, to see the video, if you haven't seen it, go check out and Google on Vimeo. It's titled Diane Comes Home. And it is just so touching, so amazing, but it's so powerful. Like these two women, moms that I know, just everyday moms that just had a passion to do something, and they brought a family together. You guys, this man had not seen his family in 4 years. And I mean, it's kind of a scary thought, but like without their help, without, Alik might not have ever seen her husband, like there was nobody to advocate for her. There was nobody to do all this research. She didn't know where to find it. This is a whole nother country. And so they kind of did that hard work for her, and bringing him home. And I think it was just so amazing to watch all the emotion in Mary, Claire and Molly's faces when he walks towards his children and hugs his little boy that he hasn't seen. There he had a son that he hadn't seen ever, and that was the first meeting. And then just to watch Diane fall to his knees and praise the Lord for this was just amazing. And I want to share a few quotes with you guys, because I feel like this is one of those episodes that you have to listen to. And so I don't want to talk a lot specifically about it, because I just feel like it's really encouraging for the mom life. Just in our pursuit, like this isn't the only journey that we were meant to have. And sometimes it is, but I feel like we all have callings that can be used in different ways. And so I just want to make sure that you as a mom, you feel empowered, and that you are a little encouraged to embrace that calling, whatever it may be, how big, how small. And it might be with your neighbors. Like it might be something small that doesn't take organizing a huge, volunteer group. It might just be like, planning a play date with your neighbors, because you have the gift of encouraging women. Like you have a gift of listening. And I know these are all things that feel so small to us, but we all need these things. A lot of us need just somebody to listen to us. So that would be awesome if you could use that gift to bless others. But I feel like one of the things that stood out to me was the quote that she had said, "We feel like it's okay for our kids not to be the center of attention all the time. We feel like it's okay for our husbands to see us working and doing something they know the Lord has called us to, and order pizza instead of chicken veggies." Like, I think that is everything mom right there. Like, it's okay for our kids not to be the center of attention. Like, it's okay to let them learn to entertain themselves. Like there's a time that they're not going to have somebody to facilitate playtime. They're not going to have somebody to sit by them and, interact with them all the time. They're going to have to learn to do stuff on their own. And I think that's very hard for us to swallow. I think that we feel like we're letting our kids down or we're neglecting them. And I just felt like this was an episode that kind of showed that there is a good neglect, there is a good balance. And I love how Molly Jameson says, like, it's so simple, but it's honestly, she says, honestly, things always seem harder than they actually are. And that is so true. I feel like we make it way harder than it actually has to be. And Mary Claire, I love how honest they were about their different ways of momming. So like one is very structured, you know, and with nap time, and then the other is very go with the flow. And I love how they just embrace each other, the way that each other do life, and they encourage each other, and they both found a way to make it work for them to still have the things that they feel are important in their children's lives and their way of parenting, but yet still like going out and doing the same thing. So they together created this ministry coming from different parental preferences and made it work. And so that was really interesting and really encouraging. And I'll end you with the last thing that Mary Claire said. She said, do know that a lot of good things do happen when you stretch yourself a little bit and when you stretch your kids a little bit, and they're really resilient. So then my last episode that I want to talk about is my episode with Blair Brown, a good friend of mine. We got together after it had been a few years, probably maybe a little less than 7 years. I think the last time we said that we had saw each other it was at a grocery store. Okay, so maybe it had been a few years. Okay, so just so you get the idea, it had been a few years since we actually sat down and talked with each other, but it was so good. It was good to pick up where we had left off with each other and just have conversation about, you know, life, like real raw life, things that we had gone through, like with our marriage, things that we had gone through with pregnancy and postpartum. And so I think it was really, really healthy for us to just sit down and kind of hash out what married life is like, what life as a mom is like. And I just wanted to do that to encourage other women to be more transparent with each other and to just kind of talk about the struggles that we have gone through, in hopes that if you're going through something that we mentioned, that you feel a little less alone in that you feel like it's okay to struggle in, you know, a thing that is a very, very heavy calling, like I had said in that episode, because it is heavy, it is big, and we feel a huge amount of responsibility for being an amazing person at our role at being a wife and at our role at being a mother, but they can be very overwhelming and very challenging and very lonely if we don't have that kind of village to support us. And that is kind of what I wanted to create with this podcast in general. But when I talked to Blair, it was very encouraging. She had some awesome tips based off of what her and her husband had gone through. One of them that I wanted to share was that she shared some marriage questions that her counselor had provided. And I even used these on my husband last night when we were coming home from date night. And it was really just awesome to create that communication between us that I might not have known the answers to, or might not have known at all without that intentionality. And it was just a good way to open up that communication. So I want to tell you those 4 questions real quick. And the first one was, how can I serve you today or this week? And it suggested that you are time specific when you ask that question. So you kind of say like today, you know, or this week, not just how can I serve you, because that is, you know, a very broad question. So how can I serve you today or this week? You could choose which one you want to ask. How can I pray for you this week? Is there anything I can repent of or ask forgiveness for? And then I was expecting something awful. Like when I asked my husband that last night, I was expecting something, you know, that for him just to be like, well, you were a horrible wife at the, you know, or something, you know, but what he actually said to me was very encouraging, actually. It was something that he saw that I was doing against myself. I was doubting myself, having self-doubt, and he's thought that, you know, it would be healthy for him to bring that up, that he is seeing that from the outside. And it was a good conversation. And the last question was, how have I done the last week at pursuing and loving you? And I think that is awesome. Like, again, these are questions that you wouldn't know were going on with each other unless you ask them. You're intentional. And I think it just brings out more communication between couples, which is always good. And then I am going to move forward using these questions to create just a regular, habit. That's the word I'm looking for. I just want that habit of keeping that communication open between us. And then I love how Blair said, if we are truly obedient and if we are truly seeking the Lord, if we are eating up his word and purposefully living obedient, imperfect lives, and he is constantly sanctifying us, and that kind of abiding means he is chopping off the dead limbs. He's even chopping off the fruitful limbs. You guys, that was so powerful for me, because sometimes we feel resentment or we feel completely hurt when the Lord takes away something that we feel is good. But it was such a good reminder too, that he even cuts us off to provide a journey that can be maybe even a longer journey than, even though the journey before was fruitful, that this new journey he's creating is going to be a long lasting fruitfulness, and that it's so much more amazing than the first one that we had. And even that he's chopping off the dead limbs. So we go through valleys and hardships in our lives, but it's because he's trying to get us over things that aren't good, things that aren't beneficial to our lives, that, or to his glory. And to help us grow, I think a lot of the times, a lot of growth comes from those valleys. And so I love that she had said that. And that also, when she was talking about her marriage with Jeff, that, even though they came from two different backgrounds and their brokenness was so different, and she kind of felt like she was at a place of comparing her brokenness to his, like hers was greater than his, and so he couldn't understand. But then she said, there is something very beautiful about coming together in your brokenness, in your sin, whether it's all you or all him, and unifying in that together. Like, hey, we're broken. Here's all our junk. Like, it's all laid out there. It doesn't matter, but we're in this together. We are two sinners living imperfect lives, trying to be the best husband and wife that we can be, the best mom and dad that we can be. And, isn't that what we're all trying to do? I feel like that is what we're all trying to do. And so that was really honest. And I love some of the more personal stories that she shares. So if you haven't listened to Blair's episode, definitely go and check that out. It was amazing. It was awesome. She's a very encouraging, very inspiring woman. And I just want to thank you for tuning in and listening to the Today's Eden podcast. You guys, this has been a dream of mine to create a safe place, like I said, a village, because I think we need to get to that mindset of it takes a village for such a heavy calling as motherhood and marriage. It can be very lonely, and I don't want if I could help one woman to feel less alone in her struggle, in her journey through these things, then I've done my job, then I have completed my goal. And so that's kind of was my dream behind the Today's Eden podcast. So thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for listening in. Thank you for helping me to pursue something that I feel passionate about. And I hope that you find me on social media and that you give me your input, that you give me things that need to be talked about, that you give me struggles that you're going with, so that way I can provide that kind of bridge to you finding your place or your encouragement, or educating you in some way, because I enjoy being able to do that. And I am so grateful for all the guests that I had on this show. They were all super, super amazing, but I couldn't talk about every single one of them today, or else I would run out of time. But I'm super thankful for every guest. Thank you so much for believing in my dream, the pursuit of the Today's Eden podcast, and for taking the time out from your own busy lives to be a part of that. So that is a year in review of the Today's the End podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I absolutely loved having the opportunity to get to share a few stories in 2016 of amazing women. So make sure you go and check out in the show notes where I will link some of the episodes that I talked about. If you heard a quote that I said during this episode or felt like something called to you, a specific topic, you will be able to find it there at todayseden.com /podcast. So PODCASTS. There's a S at the end of podcasts /009. I said that a little slow because I was a little unsure about what episode I was on, but yes, 009. And you can find all the podcast episodes with their show notes as well at todayseden.com /real talk. And you can find all the show notes for those episodes there. I would truly appreciate it if you find the time on iTunes or on your Android to rate and review this podcast for me. It helps out a lot. I know you guys know that, but I would super, super appreciate that. And you guys, I'm so honored to share this journey with you. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. And as you go out into the rest of the new year, remember to do what they think you can't do.